University of Gondar, Faculty of Informatics. And then today's tutorial is about Active Directory. I think this is our fourth tutorial. So previously we just configure the local machine, or we just configure the post installation configuration, and then hereafter our server is ready to accept any of the role. But as we discussed in the class, if you install the Windows Server 2012 without the installation and configuration of the roles, the functionality is equivalent to Windows 7 or Windows 10. So to increase this functionality of the server, we have to install and configure roles step by step. So the first rule that we are going to see today is about Active Directory. So basically, Active Directory is just a directory service or a database that stores network information, network related information, so that the server will manage those resources. For example, when we say network resources, computers, users, printer, software, data, these all are, we call it network resources. So if the server keep track of this information, it can help the server to manage resources based on some privilege and then apply some policy for sharing. So to start installation of the role, always we have to click on add roles in here, or we can go to manage add roles and features. But if you have an installed feature and role that you want to remove, you can also click on remove roles and features. So for now, let's try to install roles, add roles. We'll follow the same step. So always this screen will appear whenever you want to install role. This screen will appear, so that this is an instruction. Before you continue, there are some issues that you should handle. For example, before you continue, we have to make sure that you assign a strong administrator password. Before you continue, it's recommended to have static IP address and then to have this update from the Microsoft. But if you do these three things, you don't have to see this screen anymore, so that you can click on this, skip this page by default, so that in the next, if you want to install role, this screen will not appear installed. Instead, it will directly go to the installation tab. So we'll click on next. We'll click on next. So this is another type of installation. Just these are the two types of installation. If you have a single server and then you want to install roles and features on that server, you have to use role-based or feature-based installation. But sometimes you may have multiple virtual servers. In that case, you have to select this remote desktop service installation. So we'll click on next, and then if you have multiple server, you will get the list of server in here. We call it server pool, but unfortunately we have only one server, so that server will appear at the server pool. So by default, that server will be selected. So we'll click on next. And then these are the list of roles that we're going to install throughout the course. So whenever you click on each role, you'll get a description at the right side. So you have to read those descriptions so that you understand what role you are going to install. So we are going to install this Active Directory domain service, because this service will allow the server to keep track of resources on the network. So we'll check. When we just click on this checkbox, another dialog box will pop up, so that this is a dialog box which contains the mandatory features of the Active Directory. So this kind of feature, we call it feature on demand feature. That is a must to install for the role to work properly. So we'll click on add, and then next. So in the next screen, we'll get the list of features which are optional. For example, .NET Framework 3.5, and these all features are the feature, what we call it, the optional feature. So depending on the requirement, you can install or you can skip. So we'll click on next. So this is a summary that what Active Directory is, what kind of service do we get after installing this Active Directory. We'll click on next. So this is a summary. This is a summary, the overall summary. So if you agree, you can click on next. If you have something that you want to modify, you can go back and then change whatever setting you want. But I think this is the kind of setting that we want, and we want install the Active Directory, we'll click on install. Maybe it will take 5 to 8 minutes, so we'll wait, and then after that, after installing, we are going to configure it. So whenever you want to install a role, you have to make sure that you know two things. The first one is role installation. The second one is role configuration. So you have to install the role, and then you have to configure it, and then after it will come to the real implementation. It will come to it works fine. So let's wait for some time, and then after that we will continue the installation. Okay, the installation is completed successfully, but one thing that you should note is here it says configuration is required. The installation succeeded on the server, but the configuration is required. So we'll close, and then we'll go to the configuration screen. So before we go to the configuration, there is one thing that you should know. This is what we call it, this notification. So this is a notification flag that the server will display to the network administrator if there is some issue that should be handled. This is what we call flag or notification. But on this flag or notification, if you get this yellow notification, means there is some issue that needs a configuration. Usually, whenever you want to install and configure roles, if you install and then not yet configured, you will get this yellow notification. So yellow notification means a role which is installed but not yet configured. But instead of this yellow notification, if you get a red notification, means there is a notification or there is an issue that needs special attention. So maybe the role or the software that you installed is not properly working, or there is some critical issue on your operating system. In that case, it is highly recommended to avoid this notification. Okay. So we'll click on this notification. When we click on this notification, the server will display the type and then what kind of action should be taken. So it says Active Directory is installed, but you have to configure it. So when you configure the server, you are just making the server a domain controller. That's what it means, that promote this server to a domain controller. So let's promote it. If you promote this server into a domain controller, means this computer is going to manage resources like users and computers on the network. That's what we call it, domain controller. So we'll click on this promote this server to a domain controller, so that another dialog box will appear for us to configure the Active Directory. Okay, so this is the domain controller for Active Directory configuration. So it says select a kind of deployment service. So in here it says that add domain controller to an existing domain. We don't have an existing domain, we don't have an existing forest as well. So we are going to create the first domain and then the first forest. So we'll click on add new forest, so that will give here the domain name. So say 3.com, let it be this as a domain name, so that whenever we create a user, that user will be logged into the system using username at c3.com. And then whenever we want to add a computer, that computer will have a full path of computer name at c3.com. So CSCD is our domain name. We'll click on next. And then we'll take this as a default, and then it says type the directory service restore mode. Sometimes our directory service or Active Directory may fail. In that case, we need to restore to an existing previous point. In that case, we need a password. So I'm going to type a password which is equivalent to that login password, because it's not recommended to have different password because you may forget it. For example, if you forget this password, there is no way to recover this password. The only option that you have is to reinstall. If you forget this password, the only option that you have is to reinstall and configure the Active Directory that may have lots of losing of information. So click on next, and then it says the DNS should be installed parallel to the Active Directory. Let it install. Click on next. And then it will ask the NetBIOS name, so it will take the first part, the CSD part, from the domain name. Next. The next screen will let us to choose the path that Active Directory database to install. So by default, the path is on the C drive of the Windows folder. I think it's recommended to keep this default installation, because once we just install the Windows server, it's not recommended to install any other software or personal things on the server. So let it be the default one. We'll click on next. So this is a summary of the Active Directory configuration, and then as I told you before, if there is anything that you want to modify, you can go back. If not, you'll click on next, and then finally you'll install. And then this is the dialog that Active Directory is checking for all prerequisites. If all prerequisites pass, the install icon will be enabled. If there is some problem on your server configuration, this install icon will not be enabled. For example, if you forget to assign static IP address, you can't install Active Directory. So we are going to install. We are going to click on install so that it will configure Active Directory. So